Who pays the price of problems allowed to accumulate over time? Governments across Africa are bulldozing people's homes and calling it environmentalism. A lot of people hear wetland and think swamp, muddy water, nothing important. That is completely wrong. Wetlands are nature's flood defense system. They absorb excess water during heavy rains, so your streets don't become rivers. They filter pollutants before they reach your drinking water. They are home to thousands of species that keep entire food chains running. Now the reality is, wetlands have been disappearing for decades, quietly, consistently. Because people need land, cities need to expand, and developers need profit. Once a wetland is gone, it doesn't come back, not really. Not in any time frame that helps us. And that's the crisis. That's why governments are finally moving. But how they are moving, that's where everything gets complicated. In Uganda, the National Environment Management Authority has been leading what they are calling wetland restoration operations. What does that look like on the ground? Demolition teams rolling into residential areas, houses pulled down, rental units gone, roadside businesses that families depend on all destroyed. In Kasubi, Kawala, and Busabala, communities woke up to these, some with barely any notice. People lost homes, lost livelihoods, and were left counting losses with no clear path to compensation. Now, to be clear, many of these structures were built illegally inside protected wetland zones. That's real. That's a problem that needed addressing. Now shift to Lagos, Nigeria, and the contrast is striking. Lagos is one of Africa's biggest, most densely populated cities. Over 22 million people in 3,577 square kilometers. It is an economic powerhouse and it is consuming itself. Over the past 3 decades, rapid urbanization has been swallowing Lagos wetlands whole. Natural floodplains turned into real estate. Lagoon shores sand-filled by developers, drainage channels blocked by unplanned construction, forests cleared to make room for a city that keeps growing faster than it can plan. The result? Flooding. Persistent, worsening, destructive flooding that experts say is directly linked to wetland loss. At an advocacy event back in December 2024, Lagos State's Special Advisor on Environment acknowledged it plainly. The rate of wetland loss in the state is alarming and can no longer be ignored. He said signage had been erected on identified wetland zones to prevent further encroachment. Signage. In a city of 22 million with developers moving fast and many moving faster. Signage. Environmental experts weren't impressed either. Michael Shimeri, Executive Director of EnviroNews and a leading environmentalist, described what's happened to Lagos wetlands as a spatial transformation driven by demand, unplanned reclamation, excessive dredging, encroachment on natural drainage, and deforestation, all feeding into an urban environment that's increasingly unable to cope with heavy rain. The Lagos State Ministry of Environment has responded, issuing statutory notices to illegal developers. But this is not just about environment versus development. It's about who pays the price for fixing problems that were allowed to build up over decades. In Uganda, it's poor families in informal settlements, people who may have had nowhere else to go. Now, they are losing their homes without warning or recourse. In Nigeria, it's a city that expanded without a plan and is now flooding because the natural systems that would have protected it are gone. In both cases, the people bearing the heaviest burden are rarely the ones who made the decisions that created the crisis. And governments are still trying to figure out how to do both things at once: protect the environment, and protect the people living in it. That balance hasn't been found yet, but it has to be, because the alternative on both sides is a crisis that only gets harder to reverse.